Attorneys who say no sexual abuse happened are likely to emphasize the burden of proving the nearly 50-year-old case lies entirely with the plaintiffs, Cosby not likely to attend the trial. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has the management of real estate closing down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. A good way to start a talk show on a Wednesday here on Guam. Puts everybody on notice that this is a conservative, slightly libertarian call-in talk show that is rated tops as far as afternoon radio in the Western Pacific Ocean. I always start out with the Second Amendment. It's an important part of our Constitution, and oftentimes I bring you a little news about the Second Amendment, guns, etc. Today I have a column from my buddy Jonathan Turley, who writes, President Biden repeats dubious claim about the assault weapons ban. Now, yesterday I cautioned everyone out there in our international radio listening audience, when you hear Democrats talking about assault weapons and how horrible they are, just make a mark on your scorecard. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Assault weapons is a meaningless term. What they're referring to is semi-automatic rifles that have a particular appearance. But a semi-automatic rifle is a semi-automatic rifle. Semi-automatic means for every time you pull the trigger, one round fires. If you're talking about an automatic weapon, you pull the trigger back and the gun continues to fire until it either runs out of ammunition or jams. A machine gun is an automatic weapon. These snazzy-looking rifles with pistol grips and flash hiders on the muzzle that everybody calls assault weapons are just semi-automatic rifles. So here's how the article goes. We previously discussed how President Biden continues to repeat the same false statements. Man, I bet you every columnist in the country could start a column like this and without fear of contradiction. However, he also repeated another dubious, as you were, claim about the Second Amendment when it was ratified, about bans on weapons while the Second Amendment was ratified. He has repeated another dubious claim this weekend. The comments have received considerable coverage after the president seemed to target 9mm guns for possible legislative bans, stating that high-caliber weapons like the 9mm handgun should not be needed, and told the public that a .22 caliber bullet will lodge in the lung and we can probably get it out, may be able to get it and save the life. A 9mm bullet blows the lung out of the body. So Joe Biden's solution here is to find every criminal running around with a 9mm handgun and do a swap. You give us your 9mm and we'll give you a .22. 3 baseball cards and a future draft choice.
Sounds fair.
Yeah. Critics pushed back on that claim, but such statements can be written off as part of the hyperbolic rhetoric surrounding gun rights and gun control. Yet he made a separate factual claim about the record of the earlier assault weapons ban that is more questionable. In addition to repeating for the second time in 2 days a false claim that certain weapons were banned at the ratification of the Second Amendment, Biden made the claim that assault weapons ban in 1990s had significantly cut down on mass murders. He previously made this statement in favor of gun bans. Commenters have revised the earlier ban to show that such legislation has previously passed in Congress and can be passed again. The president is referring to the Public Safety and Recreational Firearms Use Protection Act, or Federal Assault Weapons Ban, and the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994. The law banned the manufacture for civilian use of certain semi-automatic firearms, as well as some large-capacity ammunition magazines. That 10-year ban was signed by President Clinton on September 13, 1994, but expired on September 13, 2004. That was before the Supreme Court recognized that the Second Amendment guarantees an individual right to gun ownership in a case called District of Columbia versus Heller in 2008. The act was not challenged under the Second Amendment in any major litigation. In other words, the federal assault weapons ban was not challenged based on the Second Amendment. Putting aside constitutional challenges, the president's factual claim is far from established. Indeed, there's no evidence that the ban had any appreciable effect on gun violence, and most studies question the impact even on mass shootings. There does appear to have been a decrease during this period and an increase after the period. However, the cause and effect claim has never been well established. Support for this claim could be based on a 2019 study in the Journal of Trauma and Acute Care Surgery that found that mass shooting-related homicides in the United States were reduced during the years of the federal assault weapons ban, 1994 to 2004. However, the author has said that this reduction was merely, quote, observational, and that the act was not clearly the cause of the reduction in shootings and death. A RAND study found such claims inconclusive. Even the Washington Post noted that part of the problem is that assault weapons ban existed for only 10 years and there are relatively few mass shootings per year, making it difficult to fully assess its impact. The Post would only say that some studies show the law was effective. The 2020 study published in Criminology and Public Policy found that bans on assault weapons had no clear effects on either the incidence of mass shootings or the incidence of victim shootings from mass shootings, victim fatalities from mass shootings. This study noted that most mass shootings do not involve assault rifles, but mainly involve the use of large caliber magazines. A 2004 Justice Department study found little support for this cause and effect claims. The obvious problem with this claim is that mass shootings are statistically rare. It's very hard to associate a decrease to the law, particularly with the abundance of existing weapons and the fact that many shootings do not involve the AR-15 or similar models. While difficult to discuss, it is also arguable that the same number of fatalities would likely have occurred with the use of semi-automatic handguns in Uvalde, Texas. That does not mean that we should not have this debate. However, we need to work from factual foundation establishing the policy and constitutional basis for reforms. No, that's not the way to do it, Jonathan Turley.
Wrong.
The way to do it is to come up with broad, emotional, demographic statements. We're going to take all your guns away from you out there, you people who are dwelling on your guns and your Bibles, you basket full of detectables. And if our name is Robert, but we want to pass ourselves off as Mexicano, so we call ourselves Beto, we'll burst into the governor's press conference and start calling him out as though we were adult male versions of Greta Thunberg.
How dare you!
That's how you get your message across about gun control. None of this statistical research, fact-basis theories. No. Okay, so that's the Second Amendment. Let's turn now to our semi-courtney portion of the show. I gotta borrow your hard copy, Jose. I forgot to bring mine with me. Okay. It's the Post. Yeah, I printed it out and left it on my desk. Oh, it's inside. Huh? Okay. Sorry. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to have to take issue with this one, too, because, you know, it's that old common sense. You've got to register and vote. It doesn't matter who you vote for. Just get out there and vote. And I'll go through some of the editorial, and then I will announce my bias and prejudice here. The campaign signs are going up all along the roadways. Well, no, they're not. They're not going up along the roadways because that's against the law, thanks to Michael San Nicolas.
That'll be tomorrow's editorial.
Yeah. Let's see. Commercial ads and infographics are interrupting our kids' designated YouTube hour. And the online banter from supporters for this senatorial candidate, that congressional delegate, and each of the gubernatorial teams is slowly escalating with words we can't print here. Yeah, sesquippedal, you know, any words, any sesquippedal word. Sesquippedal meaning a word that's a foot and a half long, they can't print. So they're not going to print words like watermelon in Mississippi. Too long, too much trouble. Websites are being launched, both official and unofficial. Campaign promises are being printed on brochures. Unless you're part of a more prepared team, then your brochures already have been found a home in the back seat of a supporter's car. And the pocket meetings are bringing free food and entertainment to a village near you. If you can sit through the speeches, of course. The tables don't get blessed until the last stump is stumped. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the island's favorite biennial love affair with the gladiator sport of Guam politics is in full swing. The tickets are free. The games are held wherever a candidate can schedule an appearance, and the campaign frenzy will only get more intense as the weeks go on and we approach the 2022 primary election. It's a no-holds-barred match from here in. This no-limit campaign round where the winners take it all for a spot on the 2022 general election ballot. Well, almost no limit. Don't forget, candidates, lest you be reminded by the authorities, there's a limit to how much money you can accept from your donors and well-wishers. And for thousands of Guamanians who wholeheartedly, enthusiastically, and passionately participate in the election season, we urge you all to head down to the Election Commission and put vot, make sure all your documents are in line and you're properly registered to vote this year. According to the Election Commission website, the primary election is August 27, and those who wish to vote must register by July 28. Other important voter information about in-office voting, early voting, homebound voting, and absentee voting is available at gcc.guam.gov. This is an important time for all legal adults, but not illegal adults, to participate in the democratic process. Find out what you need to do to let your voice be heard. Participate in your government. Register to vote. Well, that's not me. I don't say, doesn't matter, just get out there, register, go down and vote. I have this wish that I would like to see an enlightened electorate choosing our candidates, and the reason for that is that I see that this would give an advantage to the candidates that I support. I don't support dumbasses to start with. So I look for people that have something, some G2 between their ears. Being a senator requires a certain amount of skill. There are things that you must learn in order to be an effective senator. And if you're down at the Dick and Jane level, or I forgot, is it Dick and Jane or Peter and Jane? I think it's Dick.
It's the first one.
Yeah. Down at the if that's it, if you think that Dick and Jane in the book called See Spot Run was the uttermost in American literature, you're not my guy for the legislature.
It's now been revised, they and they.
Right. Dick, my pronouns are, right? Yeah, so I would like to see people who know what they're doing, who have studied, who are engaged, who read the papers every day, who watch TV every night, who listen to the speeches, and of course, it's almost not necessary for me to say it. If I said you need to be engaged, that means you need to be listening to tall tales every day. These are the kind of people that I want to see go vote. If you're too lazy to register, I think that's great. You know, there's a sorting out process here. If getting in your car and driving to the polls is too much trouble, then good, don't vote. Because I'm looking for people who care enough about voting to educate themselves or get educated somehow, get themselves to the polls, and then vote. You don't do anybody any favors just by going in and treating the ballot as though it were some sort of a game that appeared in the daily newspaper, along with, what is that game that people
Sudoku?
Sudoku, yeah. Don't treat it like some kind of a game of Sudoku.
They treat it like it's Kaduku.
Kaduku, yeah. So that's my gloss on voting. You know, I would rather see a smaller number of people go to the polls who know what they're doing than getting everybody to. I know this is not egalitarian, this is not democratic, this sounds elitist, etc., but there's an awful lot at stake here. And it's kind of like, who do you want to fly the airplane? Somebody with a really nice personality who looks really great in a uniform but doesn't know up from down? Or someone who perhaps doesn't have all these admirable personal characteristics but knows how to fly the plane. And that's what we're talking about now. We're talking about flying this plane that's called the island of Guam. And I don't want people at the controls who don't know the difference between an airplane and a motor scooter. And sometimes that's exactly what we get, because the people who go to the polls are not voting for people that can do the job. There are other things that carry them away. Okay, that's my sermon for today. Concealed as a comment on today's editorial. Let's see what we've got on the card for today. Needless to say, I've got Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. And Jose, you actually found some red rice out there in the hinterland somewhere?
Somewhere on a Facebook Guam Foodies page, there was a spotting of actual red rice.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember what the store was. Some store from Petey.
Any commentary?
Just people were finally relieved to see red rice. Wasn't a chote.
After all these years.
After all these years.
Yeah. Okay, next on the card, I've got Will Castro versus the Guam Election Commission. The governor versus Michael San Nicolas, if you saw the debates last night. Pete Scrow versus Vanessa Williams. Tom Wood versus eco-fascists. Environmental wackos versus the United States Marine Corps. Kyle versus GPA. Load shedding versus the legislature. The Supremes versus the Waterworks. Weir versus us. Carl Gutierrez versus GVB. The Attorney General versus GTA. A racist versus Uvalde. Beto versus Robert. And France versus Russia. It's a long, long card. Probably going to keep me busy for the rest of the week. Okay, not much more needs to be said about Paul Zerzan and systemic racism. I go next to Will Castro versus GCC. Now, a little background here. Will Castro was a senator, 2 terms ago.
34th?
Yeah. And then he dropped out to run for Washington rep. He's still running.
He ran north.
Out beside Beach Road in Saipan, yeah. And then he took a job as the chief of staff for the governor of the Northern Marianas, Ralph...
Torres.
Torres, yeah, Ralph Torres. I guess Will now has a specialty, impeachment. So that's where he's been for the last several months. Now, here's an announcement that ran on KUAM last night. In Decision 22 News here on Island, a couple more packets have been picked up for a seat in the 37th. He's no stranger to the political arena. Will Castro had a packet signed off under his name for senator on the Republican side of the ballot. Castro is the current chief of staff for the office of governor in the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands and is a former 2-term senator. So that's interesting, huh? Of course he couldn't pick it up himself. He's in Saipan. You can't pick up a packet in Saipan. And I happened to be curious, and I looked at Section 1423 of the Organic Act, which is titled Qualifications of Members. And this is what it says. No person shall sit in the legislature who is not a citizen of the United States, who has not attained the age of 25, and who has not been domiciled in Guam for at least 5 years immediately preceding the sitting of the legislature in which he seeks to qualify as a member. No! 5 years domiciliary. Well, he's been up in Saipan for about the last 7 months. That's why I put this on the card as Will Castro versus GEC. Now, you don't have to be a 5-year domiciliary to pick up a packet, that's for sure. But if he fills out his papers and turns them in, what will the Election Commission do? I have a feeling this is going to be another one of those Sherlock Holmes and the Silver Blaze. It won't be what the Election Commission does. It'll be what the Election Commission doesn't do. Well, I could make an argument that perhaps he's qualified, but it's not a slam dunk argument, and an argument must be made because it's public knowledge. He's made no bones about moving to Saipan to be the chief of staff for the governor of the Northern Marianas. Let's take a short break, and we'll come back to the governor versus MSN.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point. Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Jose Ted Pago put something on the internet that sounds like it couldn't possibly be true unless you think about what is involved and who is involved. And let's see, he says, where is that? Just heard California is putting forward legislation removing the requirement for schools to call the police in the event of a shooting in the name of equity. We've got to advance equity. So it may very well be that those shooters are the disenfranchised, the marginalized, BIPOCs. Okay, I got somebody on the phone already. That would be R. James. He's got a quick piece of trivia. I love trivia. Go, James. I just can't associate you with trivia, but go for it.
Well, it's because it's firearms and crime-related trivia.
All right.
I don't think that the official numbers have been published for 2021 yet. You know, they're pretty slow at getting the previous year's reports into the Federal Register. But for 2021, according to the FBI and the DOJ's report on crimes against persons, what do you think was the number one most popular weapon used in the commission of crimes against persons that resulted in a debilitating injury or death?
Well, I'm going to take a wild guess and say knives.
Hands and feet, parentheses, work boots.
Ah.
Okay? That don't take my word for it. You can do a Google search, everybody out there. All of you ungun, unconstitutional, folks out there who say, BS on that. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. Next quick trivia fact.
Go ahead.
I believe the number was, and I'm not going to swear to this because I might have forgotten the exact number, but for 2020, the number of deaths attributed to mass shooters, I believe, was 312. I could be off on that, so I'm not going to swear to it. The number of people that were killed by DUIs was over 100,000. So if they really wanted to save some lives, they'd really start sticking it to the people who drive under the influence. Because there's a whole lot more innocent people getting killed on the highway and your local average everyday street corner than are getting killed in mass shootings. Just a couple of trivia facts for everybody.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. But, of course, nothing that you said fits the narrative. So if you don't hear it on Tall Tales, you're not going to hear it, right?
That's right. And I'm not trying to fit the narrative. That's the reason why I'm not calling CNN Plus. Oh, wait a minute. CNN Plus went bust. Okay, yeah, CNN.
Good talking to you, R. James.
Hey,
Thanks
at
for...
least I got a laugh out of it.
There you go. Thanks for chiming in, R. James. Yeah, R. James always on point. Always got some valuable information for us. Okay, so let's see. Next on the card is Governor Leon Guerrero versus MSN. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time giving you a recap of the debate. Is it still available somewhere out there in cyberspace, Jose?
I believe it's archived on our Facebook page, The Point.
Okay.
And it could be on Candid also.
Okay.
Candid News Facebook page.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's just one little squib here that I'm going to pick up on. As the governor discusses significant impact of federal assistance provided to Guam, more than $2.2 billion pushed out to the community, she said the funding would have come regardless of who was the island's congressional delegate. Those federal dollars, just to be clear, would have come here regardless of who the congressional delegate is, Leon Guerrero said, to the laughter of some in the audience. For serious, I know that because it was a law that was passed when the United States started seeing this virus and they started seeing it impact the economy. They stepped in. The federal government stepped in, pumping money into the unemployment insurance and stepped in and gave us federal financial assistance, the governor added. The Daily Post requested comment from San Nicolas, who stated that it was, quote, unfortunate that the governor would purposely try to mislead the people in hopes of getting reelected. Our people know better. They know that such statements are made because of the fact that she has not met their expectations. The Congress, too, is not amused by her efforts to mislead. He added, pointing to a September 2020 hearing of the House Committee on Financial Services, during which California Representative Maxine Waters, also known as Auntie Max, the committee chair told Leon Guerrero that the successes Guam had been able to realize were all because of San Nicolas. Quote, I want you to know your congressional representative here, Michael San Nicolas, has done a fabulous job in recognizing your territory, Auntie Max said. During that hearing, Leon Guerrero thanked Waters and her colleagues for Guam's inclusion in federal pandemic unemployment programs, which appeared to be why Waters recognized San Nicolas. At Tuesday's GVB membership meeting, the governor outlined the millions received through the Wuhan Virus Aid Program. And then she goes on to say, these money came to us regardless of who the congressional delegate is. So people that should be thanked are you, Leon Guerrero told GVB membership audience when they weren't fighting with Carl Gutierrez, adding that thanks should also go to those who work to push out local assistance programs because of military spending, because of government spending, etc. She acknowledged that her decisions made a lot of people angry. Criticism up and down everywhere, but I'll tell you, I remained focused, steadfast, because I knew what we did was the right thing. And now look where we are, she said. So anyhow, San Nicolas kind of dropped the dime on her with the anti-max dimension. I watched the whole thing, and I'm not going to go through it chapter and verse. I am going to rule as though it were a boxing match and I were the judge. So I will not grab the winner's hand and hold it up in the air or signify that there was a knockout. It was a victory on points. And I'll give it to Governor Leon Guerrero on points, surprising as that might seem. And these are some things that I gauged my decision on. I tried to look at it as though I didn't know anything about either of the parties, that I didn't know them as individuals, as people, as persons, and that I wasn't really aware of what they had done and what they hadn't done. And once again, my analysis comes down to the analysis of the very first presidential debates, the Nixon-Kennedy debates, which I watched on TV. Black and white, of course, and a little 10-inch screen, but I watched it anyhow. And the commentators of the date said that if you listened to it, you thought that Nixon won, because Nixon was a very smart man, very calculating, the ability to bring tremendous concentration to whatever he did, and he sounded very authoritative. If you listen to him speak, he had I wouldn't say a stentorian presence, but when he spoke, people ordinarily would stop doing what they were doing and listen to him as though he were the point or something really important. Kennedy, not so much. Kennedy was the young playboy guy, the daring war hero, PT-10 guy, PT-109 guy. Not so impressive when you heard him. But if you watched, people who evaluated based on what they saw on the tube gave the debate to Kennedy, because he was younger, he was more charming, he came across better visually than he did orally, etc.
He had makeup on.
And he wore makeup, which anybody who knows what he's doing will do nowadays.
For TV.
For TV, yeah. Even my old friend, when I was a TV star myself down at cable, I never used makeup, but my buddy Jeff Evans did. It's just something that you do. So as I watched, I thought Lou looked better than Michael. Her facial expressions, they had her really dolled up and made up, so she looked really presentable. And she had, of course, an advantage because as the governor, she had her playbook already done. All she had to do was talk about the things she had done. Whereas Michael had to be aware of whatever the possible issues would be and then have constructed some kind of a response to the issue as it was sprung on him, as though he were being cross-examined in a criminal case. So my advice to Michael and Lou, you're better off if you keep doing it. Michael, it's not your forum. So I gave it to Lou probably on about a 10-7. No knockouts. I had a caller, must have been Michael San Nicolas, asking for more information.
Right. You don't say no. It was Kellis, and we had already mentioned what he was going to call about, the makeup.
Okay. All right. So, it is a visual medium. So don't wear a red shirt on TV. Wear a dark shirt, dark blue or black. It makes you look more stately, more dignified, more presentable. And if you know how to use makeup, put it on if you're going to be on the TV.
We talked about something that was interesting also that I think could have been a factor in your decisions and anyone's decisions is you could have watched it on PBS, the local public channel. Mm-hmm. You could have watched it on Facebook, or you could have listened to it on the radio because we had broadcasted it here on 93.3. Mm-hmm. And watching it and listening to it, or you kind of got two different things out of it because I believe on the Facebook feed and maybe some of in the radio, you heard the ads, the opposition's ads, and most of the majority of them, of course, were for Leon Guerrero. And there's still a debate on whether negative ads work or not. in your favor, your candidate's favor or not. So that had a lot to do with it also, I think. PBS did not run the ads.
Are you sure?
I don't think I remember seeing them. I saw a blank, not a blank screen, but a title card whenever they went to a break.
I remember the Jim Moylan ad.
Oh.
It was just a picture of Jim Moylan and no audio.
Oh yeah, the audio, the video ads that played. I don't remember seeing them.
Well, I saw that the Dick Santos, what's his PAC name for Responsible Guam?
Responsible Guam.
Peter Guam.
Oh, you watched on PBS?
Yeah.
How come I only saw a title card?
I don't know. But, well, maybe you're thinking of Jim Moylan. I thought, man, that is a dumb ad. Because people that are watching that are going to say, what, Moylan, you don't have anything to say? What kind of an ad is this? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I look for his mailing address.
I think he requests for others' mailing address and some letters to send out.
Yeah. So, and then I think probably the size of the screen even made a difference. I watched it on my big screen TV, which I think is more favorable. And I can't exactly explain why, but more favorable for females than it is for males, especially males that have 5 o'clock shadows. If anybody still remembers what a 5 o'clock shadow is. So that was it. And then, of course, the main event was Luz being stricken with some unnamed malady. There was a short post. Governor leaves debate early. I got off the news. Experienced shortness of breath. Debate featuring the two gubernatorial candidates ended sooner than scheduled Tuesday evening after the governor showed signs she wasn't feeling well. At the start of the final round of questions, Governor Lilian Guerrero requested that she be allowed to leave. In the prior round, she began to cough. A doctor checked on her, and she subsequently was accompanied to the elevator at the DNA building. During the debate, she began to experience coughing and shortness of breath. Out of an abundance of caution, she's receiving medical attention. At this time, she is feeling better and thanks everyone for their prayers and concerns, said Crystal Paco San Augustine, the governor's communications director. Delegate Michael San Nicolas, who's challenged the governor in gubernatorial race, posted a message saying, please join us in wishing the governor well. Well, I will do that. I wish you well, Governor. Speedy recovery. Hope you get back on the campaign trail soonest. So anybody who wants to talk about the debate, there's plenty to talk about if you so desire. I've got a pretty full card, but that would take precedence if anybody wanted to get on and talk about it. Okay, another Joe wants to dispute my call of the winter, apparently. Go ahead, another Joe.
I was actually on hold. I was asking, my comment was, did you just say that Lilian Guerrero was pretty?
I said they had her all dolled up.
Oh.
Okay.
So she was presentable. Basically, she's Miss Congeniality.
That's her ordinary. She never ran for Miss World. She always ran for Miss Congeniality, and could never figure out why she always came in last. But that's another. I should be nice to her. She may be not feeling good today.
Are you saying she didn't make the cut?
Yeah.
But you're thinking that she made out like JFK did, that appearance-wise.
She looked better than Michael San Nicolas, yeah.
And she was on point.
And she did a good job. She was well prepared, no question about it. She did not pull a Kamala Harris where she giggled every time she was asked a question instead of actually answering the question. So yeah, well, she did well.
I'll tell you what, Bob. There's definitely something for the Republicans to learn from. See how what their strategy is going to be to. Well, I think that we're still waiting to see right after the primary who they're going to be up against. So, but the polls are the polls out, or are they still waiting for the polls?
I don't even know who's doing polling right now. But back to the debate, the real winner, of course, last night was Felix Camacho, because the more the two Democrats tear into each other, the better the chance that they'll cancel one another out, and Felix Camacho will be the last man standing and therefore be the governor. So some people criticize, well, he should have been there. The Republicans should have had some presence, et cetera. And I don't go along with that. I think he made the right call by not being there. If in effect what we're talking about is the Democrat primary, not the general election, his answers to the questions would not have fit the format the way they should have. And of course, if you are a politician, when you commit yourself, you have to be really sure of what it is you're committing yourself to. You got to have your script all lined up. You got to be able to go from the trick that you're playing to 3 or 4 tricks down the game. And there's no sense in committing yourself too early and a hand of cards that really doesn't count for anything anyhow. So Felix played it smart.
Bob, do you think anyone in the Democrat primary is going to bring up the being pro-life, anti-abortion? And there's no way they're going to bring it up
in the Democrat primary. Is that
too much to ask for?
Are you saying just in the Democrat primary?
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know that St. Nicholas has ever established his position one way. Has he?
Here on Ray's show, he did. Those are real quick. He was pro-life, and then his running mate was pro-choice.
Strange. Okay, Bob, thanks. I'll just keep listening.
Yeah, and one more thing that I just remembered from the debate. The thing that would tip me if I were voting in their primary was the question, who should vote on the question of Guam's political status? And the governor, of course, stuck to her guns. It should be just Chamorros. And, going through the old tired rap about we've never had the chance, all of that kind of stuff. And St. Nicholas said, people what the governor's doing, giving people false hope. She said Congress is never going to approve any kind of a plebiscite where only some of the people get to vote. I want all the people to vote. So that's the kind of statement I'm looking for. I have a self-interest here. If there's an election, I never miss an election. I don't care where I am, what I'm doing, how I'm feeling. I get down there and mark my X's on the paper. And if it comes to something like this, of course I want to vote. And I don't want to be voted off the island. So St. Nicholas made a lot of points with me. Let's take a short break here. Another Joe. Talk to you later.
Pica's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Yeah, I noticed a post here from Mano Franklin. People tend to turn away from negative ads. I know I don't pay attention to them. And then MT Farron says, funny, Jerry Roberts thinks otherwise, and I think otherwise. And let's define what we mean by negative ads. Negative ads are the product of oppositional research. So A and B are going for the same office, B digs into A's past, and he finds out that when he was 21 years old, A robbed a bank and spent 3 years in jail because he robbed a bank. And now, 35 years later, he's running on a platform of fiscal integrity and the necessity for government to supervise banking. If I'm B, I'm going to trot out that conviction and that imprisonment and say, you want a guy who robbed a bank and did time for robbing a bank to be elected when he's running on a platform to regulate banks? That is what you would call negative campaigning. In other words, saying something about your opponent has got to be true. It has to be true, and it has to be relevant. Now, as an example, same fact situation, but 35 years ago, A was a lifeguard. And during the time that he was supposed to be lifeguarding, he got down from his perch up on the lifeguard's chair, went behind a bush and smoked a cigarette. And he got caught smoking the cigarette, and he got a Class A ass chewing from his boss and a warning that if he ever happened again, he would not be a lifeguard anymore. And when A is running, the lifeguard calls B's campaign and says, I got something for you on A, and he lays out that story. Is it relevant? No. Is it true? Yes. So that would be an example not of negative campaigning, but of smear campaigning. Perhaps the proper pronunciation isn't even smear, it's probably schmear campaigning. To find something about someone that's embarrassing long ago that has nothing to do with any of the issues in the campaign or the candidate and bring it up. Because one of the interesting things about a campaign is that candidates are successful depending on whether or not or how long or what their ability to stay on message. Anytime a candidate is not on message, he's losing. He's losing time. So a good tactic in campaigning is to try to take your opponent off message. So if he's defending scurrilous charges like he was a bad lifeguard, that's not it takes him away from his opportunity to tell you about his 4-point plan that will revolutionize government. So these things all play into it. But to say that negative campaigning is not effective, I think is short-sighted.
There was one thing I saw towards the end, and this is when Lou was coughing and lost her breath, that she started calling MSN names clueless and all these other things.
Yeah.
But that didn't faze him. It was incredible. I thought that would at least get him to stumble, but he actually congratulated her on a couple of things, and he was able to show some weakness in her point. But I was like, wow, and she did it, I think, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, she did. And that's not negative campaigning. That's stupidity, you know. To make a personal attack on your candidate, that's absolutely baseless. It's nothing more than name calling. It's playground type campaigning, right? Yeah. So if I had been St. Nicholas, I would have come back and said, your father's mustache, which only really old people would recognize as the classic comeback to an insult back in the day. Okay, so next item on the card is Pete Scrove versus Vanessa Williams. And I got into this yesterday. It's this article from EP News about on remote U.S. territories, abortion hurdles mount without Roe. Now let's break for the big halftime show.
Escotnia, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Talk about guns and school safety. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News, with lawmakers from both parties on Capitol Hill Tuesday.
Senator John Cornyn of Texas is taking the lead for the GOP in talks with Democrats in an effort to curb gun violence. He held a private virtual meeting Tuesday and said it was a very constructive conversation. Also in on those talks, Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, who posted a video on Twitter.
We are not prepared to allow our schools to continue as killing fields.
But there's little hope for a compromise now. Meanwhile, the House Judiciary Committee is holding a hearing Thursday on the proposed Protecting Our Kids Act. It would raise age limits on semi-automatic rifle purchases and create a grant program to buy back large-capacity magazines.
Fox's Jill Nadeau in Washington. The school's police chief in Uvalde, Texas, has reportedly stopped talking to the Texas Department of Public Safety, investigating the police response to the shooting last Tuesday. President Biden discussing inflation yesterday with Fed Chair Jerome Powell and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, saying he's confident of an economic recovery.
Chair Powell and other leaders of the Fed have noted at this moment they have a laser focus on addressing inflation, just like I am. And with a larger complement of board members now confirmed, I know we'll use those tools in monetary policy to address the rising prices for the American people.
A court hearing in Washington today is expected to lead to freedom for a would-be presidential assassin. John Hinckley Jr. shot and nearly killed then-President Ronald Reagan March 30th, 1981. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity, ordered confined to a psychiatric hospital. A hearing in federal court in Washington today likely to confirm a judge's ruling that Hinckley's been restored to reason and will be freed, likely within 2 weeks. America is listening to Fox News.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
President Biden, writing in a New York Times essay, says he's decided to send more sophisticated missile systems to Ukraine, likely to be used against Russian positions in the Donbass region, while the Kremlin is reportedly drilling its nuclear forces and testing them on intercontinental Yars missile systems, which can carry multiple nuclear warheads. Hillary Clinton's former campaign attorney has been cleared of charges of lying to the FBI. Michael Sussman had told the Bureau he was bringing them information about the Trump campaign in 2016 as a concerned private citizen. Prosecutors had said he was working for the Clinton campaign and even produced billing records. The jury didn't buy it. June the 1st, it's summertime, and it's also time for tropical storms.
The hurricane season begins each year on the 1st of June. Those storms can occur before this day. Regardless, forecasters with NOAA predict once again this summer will be active in the tropics with an above-normal number of tropical cyclones forming in the Atlantic Basin, which includes the ocean, the Caribbean Sea, and the Gulf of Mexico. The official seasonal outlook calls for 21 named storms, and 10 of those could become hurricanes, but just one striking your area can create much havoc. In Broward County, Florida, Eben Brown, Fox News.
Facebook is changing some of its location-based features.
Facebook users will no longer be able to use features including background location, location history, nearby friends, and weather alerts as of today. It informed users that the information they shared to use those features will no longer be collected after May, but that it will continue to collect location information for other users as allowed by its data policy. Adweek reports that users who want to see or delete their existing location history must do so before August 1st. Otherwise, it will be automatically deleted. Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. Patsy Gogui from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarte Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Munning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Okay, another big halftime show here on Tall Tales, and we are now in the second half of Tall Tales. During the halftime break, I peeked at Facebook comments, and I got a couple that I want to pick up and do something with, starting out with someone asked a question about Michael San Nicolas and his ethical problem with the United States House of Representatives, asking, would using that as part of your campaign, referring to that as part of your campaign, would that be negative campaigning or schmear? That's classic negative campaigning. It's true. It's relevant. It has to do with the fitness of the candidate. And you're not digging something up that no one else has ever heard of. So that's classic negative campaigning, fair game. And I suspect it's also quite effective. People see it over and over again in the newspaper. And as I mentioned before, there's a guy named Michael Lind who said that people will believe a lie that they've heard many times before they believe a truth that they're hearing for the first time. Not that anything about the ethics problem is a lie. I mean, he has a problem, and the Ethics Committee in the House is investigating it, and they have made releases. So know that would not be a schmear. That would be negative, permissible negative campaigning. And then Vincent Duenas says, Chamorro self-determination is similar to Native American self-determination, where a lot of Chamorro rights activists base their argument within the American Constitution. The difference is huge, though. Guam is in the West Pacific Ocean, where it has to contend with the likes of China. The fact that China has the wherewithal to conduct military operations similar to the likes of Japan pre-World War II needs to be added to the equation. Well, I don't dispute your conclusion, but I do want to make it clear that the Native Americans, what we used to call Indians, and Chamorros, there's absolutely no similarity whatsoever. And I'll go to the part of the Constitution that I refer to whenever this comes up. Article 1, Section 8. The Congress shall have the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among several states and with the Indian tribes. So the Indian tribes already have their self-determination. They are separate, dependent sovereigns. They are sovereign nations, some of which have treaties with the United States. Some of those treaties provide for provisions for members of those Indian tribes to have certain privileges that are not available to non-Indians. So they already have their self-determination. And the fact that they're right here in Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 3, regulate commerce with the Indian tribes, means that there is a congressional recognition of a group called Indian tribes. As far as the Chamorro self-determination, folks, there is no congressional finding that there is a group of people that are entitled to a political recognition because they are Chamorros. Yeah, I know you don't like the sound of it.
Now, under the Department of Public Health, there is a division called the Association of Native Americans that allows Chamorros and Hawaiians, because I don't think Hawaiians are under the Native American status, to receive funds that are similar to what Native Americans receive. However, we cannot receive funding for programs that are attributed to tribes and councils. So it's programs that like fund a lot of Tautau things and like 500 cells up there in Saipan, but not by a blood count or anything, but just by a population.
And it's a statute.
Yes.
It's a statutory welfare scheme.
Not a congressional designation.
Yeah.
That's how you said it.
Yeah, yeah. So at one time, and if I were whispering into the ear of Julian Uggan, I would have whispered a long time ago that that's what they should have shot for when they were contesting the ruling in the Davis case. Instead, they confined themselves to the United States Constitution and attempted to finesse the Ninth Circuit ruling instead of addressing it on a basis that would have been more consistent with their ideology. And here's the hook that they could have hung this on. The Organic Act, as enacted, had a Section 9. Section 9A said that the government should give preference in employment and training to Guamanians. Now, that requires a little bit of definition. So the Congress said there is a group of people on Guam that are called Guamanians. And this government of Guam is supposed to establish a merit system. The legislature should establish a merit system, but one of the elements of the merit system is that you give preference to qualified Guamanians over others. And when it comes to training, you give preference to qualified Guamanians over others. So that's a definite recognition of a group called Guamanians. Now, translation is necessary because in 1950, the word Guamanian meant Chamorro. In the 60s, when I got here in 1963, we recognized three basic races: Filipino, Guamanian, and Statesider. Three races.
So that's Statesider?
Statesider was a race, yeah.
Wow.
And Guamanian meant Chamorro. And that was the word that was used for Chamorros. Now, this goes back to post-World War II, where there was a real, a lot of enmity between Chamorros on Guam and Chamorros from Saipan, because a lot of the Chamorros in Saipan collaborated with the Japanese. And they were brought down to Guam during the occupation as interpreters, translators, whatever. And some of it made it pretty rough on their Chamorro brothers. So there was a schism between Chamorros in the Northern Marianas and Chamorros on Guam. So the folks on Guam sometime in the late 40s were asked, what do you guys want to be called? And Chamorro was one of the choices. They didn't want any part of Chamorro because they had to be able to separate themselves from those yahoos on Saipan. So they chose Guamanian. So the native inhabitants of Guam were called Guamanian. And that was true right up through 9A until 9A was removed from the Organic Act during the time that the elected governor legislation was before Congress. My recollection is the reason it was removed is because young Turks here on Guam went down and testified and said, we don't need that anymore. We Guamanians don't need it. We're past that point. As my recollection, again, is that Carl Gutierrez was one of the young Turks, but that's beside the point. The point is that what the government should have done when it was battling against the Dave Davis ruling was to say, this is a group that Congress has recognized, and then go into your whole colonizer rhetoric and fruits of colonialism and relics of colonialism, and the only way to break out of colonial relicism is by continuing to recognize that group that you first identified as Guamanians and treat them as a separate group, sort of like the way you would treat Native Americans who are separate sovereigns. And therefore, if they want to have a referendum, they should be able to do it. Now, I don't know that that argument would have carried the day. It would have been better to lose on grounds that you favor than just lose because you're going to lose. So that's my 2 cents worth. So no, there's no similarity between Native Americans and Guamanians, Chamorros, and self-determination. Okay, let me see. Where was I here? I was picking up on Vanessa Williams, Peach Grove versus Vanessa Williams. And the rest of this article that I didn't get to finish yesterday, but Vanessa says flying to a country in Asia that allows abortion would be quicker, but several reproductive rights advocates on Guam said they hadn't heard of anyone doing that. For one, it would require a passport, which many don't have, said Kiana Yabut of the group Famalawan Rights. Now, without Roe, Guam could revert to an abortion ban dating to 1990. The Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled the law unconstitutional in 1992, but it has never been repealed. And if you go to the Guam Code Annotated, I've taken you there before, it's there in the compiler's notes. The law that was on the books before the 1992 decision sprang back into action. It's set out as a statute, but in the notes you find the pre-1992 law. Now, James Canto, Guam Deputy Attorney General, agreed under questioning by a Guam senator this month that existing abortion laws in various states and territories would be the law of the land if Roe were overturned. But Alexa Colby Molinas, Deputy Director of the Reproductive Freedom Project at the American Civil Liberties Union, said the Ninth Circuit permanently enjoyed the 1990 law, meaning Guam's Attorney General would have to ask the local district court to lift an injunction to begin enforcing it. And I covered this yesterday. And that's what I said from the very beginning. An injunction doesn't just go away because the Supreme Court has issued a ruling. So the Attorney General does up his motion. He cites to the Supreme Court decision overruling Roe, files it, it's set down for hearing, etc. And if the other side doesn't stipulate, which they should, the court will hear it and grant a motion dissolving the injunction. And then the 1990 law pops back into place. So that's where we are now. And of course, the pro-aborts much prefer the situation we're in now because it's much easier to persuade nine politicians in black robes as to what you want than the whole electorate. Okay, next on the card is Tom Woods versus eco-fascists. Tom Woods is a regular columnist that he's got his own shtick. And he says, as you know, the worst people in the world have gathered to decide how they can further make our lives miserable. One of the most provocative guests just returned to my show with a brand new book that takes direct aim at one of the elite's most cherished projects. It's Alex Epstein, and his book is Fossil Future, Why Global Human Flourishing Requires More Oil, Coal, and Natural Gas, not less. I suspect that some eco-fascists out there in our international radio listening audience just fainted when I read the title of that book.
How dare you?
His argument is extremely convincing and introduces considerations most people never think of. Fossil fuels, which provide 80% of the world's energy, have and will continue to have a unique benefit of providing low-cost, reliable energy to billions of people in thousands of places, a benefit that is desperately needed in a world where some 3 billion people still use less electricity than a typical American refrigerator. Contrary to claims that solar and wind are rapidly replacing fossil fuels, fossil fuel use is still growing, while intermittent solar and wind energy, after generations on the market, provide just 3% of the world's energy, and that 3% is totally dependent on fossil fuels, especially natural gas, for the 24/7 backup. Solar and wind are nowhere near being able to replace the energy that fossil fuels provide today, let alone the far greater amounts of energy humanity needs going forward. One of the key benefits of more fossil fuel use, I will argue, will be powering our enormous and growing ability to master climate danger, whether natural or man-made, an ability that has made the average person on Earth 50 times less likely to die from a climate-related disaster than they were in the 1 degree colder world of 100 years ago. 100 years ago, the world was 1 degree centigrade colder. Because fossil fuel use is so vital to the world's future, I will argue today's proposed possible policies to rapidly eliminate fossil fuel use would, if fully implemented, have fully apocalyptic consequences, making the world an impoverished, dangerous, and miserable place for most. And even if fossil fuel elimination policies aren't fully implemented, which they won't be, given the expressed intent of China, Russia, and India to increase their fossil fuel use, even widespread restrictions on fossil fuel use that fall short of elimination will shorten and inflict misery on billions of lives, especially in the poorest parts of the world. Yeah, but you know, it's the ecology, it's the planet. It's about virtue signaling. It's about feeling good about ourselves. Okay, well, we've got our own environmental fascists here, right here on the island. I call them environmental wackos. Next item on the card, environmental wackos versus the USMC. The Center for Biological Diversity, Blue Ocean Law, and Protege Latexian Save Retidian, also known as the usual suspects, on Friday notified the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that they intend to sue to stop the ongoing construction of a machine gun range and the relocation of 5,000 U.S. Marines to Guam. These activities jeopardize the survival of 15 endangered species, including the Guam Micronesian kingfisher and the Mariana 8-spot butterfly. The Mariana 8-spot butterfly. the potential plaintiffs stated in a press release. Military expansion is destroying Guam's precious natural and cultural heritage, and enough is enough. Max Phillips, Hawaii director and staff attorney at the center, said in the press release. It's interesting that all of these guys, all of these fighters fighting for the people of Guam are living in Hawaii. Rideau and Kaneshiro and Max Phillips.
Colonizers.
Yeah. Adding insult to injury, the Navy isn't living up to its duty to mitigate this harm and ensure the survival of Guam's imperiled plants and animals. Instead of barely doing the absolute minimum, the Navy needs to take responsibility and correct the problems it largely caused. Relocating Marines to Guam has resulted in the destruction of more than 1,200 acres of the last, best remaining limestone forests, the potential plaintiffs stated in the release.
So, did limestone forests only exist on military bases?
I think so, yeah.
So what happened to all these endangered species? How come they're not flourishing off base?
Where there must be limestone forests all over the place, yeah. Well, I drive down Route 3 from time to time just to see what's going on at Camp Blas. I suppose I should shut up. I'm not a botanist. I know the difference between a man and a woman, but I'm not a botanist. And all I saw was they cut down a lot of Tongan out there. But what do I know? These forests, known as the Guam National Wildlife Refuge, were set aside as mitigation for habitat loss and disturbance by the Air Force, according to the press release. They provide the last, maybe they're talking about someplace on the base, they provide the last habitable habitat for species, including the Guam Micronesian kingfisher, or seahek, which is extinct in the wild and struggling in captivity. The Mariana crow, the Guam rail, also known as coco, the Mariana fruit bat, Fanihi, the single remaining adult tree of Hudson Lagu. That's the tree, that they made such a big fuss out of. And after they started making the fuss, they found out that the Air Force and the university had been taking care of that tree for 20 years, and they were propagating that tree on rota so that it wouldn't be extinct. I don't think Protehe Texan had any role in any of that. Let's see, the single remaining tree of Hudson Lagu, Mariana's 8-spot butterfly, 3 species of tree snail, and 6 additional native plants also called the refuge home. 3 species of tree snails. That's a biggie. This is one of those rare occasions when the law can be powerful, can be called upon to serve the interests of most vulnerable. Julian Uggan of Blue Ocean Law said in the press release, it's not just biodiversity we're protecting, it's beauty too. Beauty is our birthright, and we are duty bound to protect it. Beauty is our birthright, and we're duty bound to protect it. Whose responsibility is an economy that would support the growing population of Guam? Is that Julian Huggins? No. All right, let's see. I got somebody waiting in the green room here. It's Donna Mila, who wants to talk about the environmental issue. Go ahead, Donna Mila.
Hi, I wanted to talk about the environmental issue because we are only focusing on what the military has been controlling for all these years, which is why we still have it. But what about, where was Julian Uggan when all these housing developments popped up in Agapagumas, behind Agapagumas? Those were all limestone forests as well. Why aren't they going after all these companies that are building all these houses? So what's their point? Like, For example, the whole thing with Simon Sanchez and the snail thing. Well, there are many housing areas around that area. So we're going to hold off developing a school that was already in existence because of a couple of snails. Well, move the snails. I mean, if you really want to create a place, then create a place and put it there. They don't need that much acreage to have these snails growing. I don't think they need more than a mile, if anything. And I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, well, Donna, it's going to be hard to get somebody to pay attention because what you say makes so much good sense. Yeah, and I'll go along with what you say because, once a time I had a chance to visit Fenno Lake, and it is a beautiful place. And you don't find empty pop cans and diapers and all the it's so much cleaner than any of our roads. And of course, the reason is because the military takes good care of it.
Yep. And we've benefited from the military taking care of the area so that we can still go to these caves, that we can still go see turtles and all this stuff. But if you go to any other property in Guam, any other property that's not controlled by the military, there's destruction of everything. And it's done by the people here because no one has any discipline. And everyone's just pointing fingers and saying, why don't they control that? Well, why hasn't the governor gotten more people to work for Parks and Rec so they can actually monitor and be there? So where is their so-called support? Beauty, really? People are going to go to Recidian area and they're going to say great view, but that great view also happens at Gun Beach, also happens at NCS Beach. I mean, come on. Those places are trash now. There are people that are haphazardly going into these areas, cutting down trees without doing the proper replanting and everything, and they're destroying things. We know people who find sling stones and they do nothing about reporting it to the Guam Museum and saying, okay, let's look at this place and let's mark it. No one's doing that. They're all just keeping it in their little places and saying, oh, this is mine. I found it. Give me a break.
Well, if you can't blame the military, it's not really much fun, Donna Mela. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for sharing.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, so Julian Uggan, beauty is our birthright, and we are duty-bound to protect it. What did I call this? Environmental wackos. Yeah. Okay, let's head for Chicago in the seventh inning stretch.
Guam World Tennis Tour, presented by GTA, is bringing international tennis back to Guam. 4 weeks of international play will swing into action with 2 weeks of juniors, followed by 2 weeks of pros, May the 15th through June 12th. The Guam National Tennis Federation will host world-ranked players who will be coming to Guam from all over the world. Netters will compete for ranking points and cash to improve their position among the world's best. Matches will be played daily at the Guam National Tennis Center in Harmon, starting May 15th through June 12th. Special thanks to our platinum sponsors, Dimension Systems, New Gen, American Medical Center, and Morico Equipment.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Okay, so here we are back again. I see a kind of a tantalizing post here. Let me open up the thread. And we've got Mano Franklin, the people of Guam were not given the same recognition as Native Americans. Yeah. No, they weren't given the same recognition as Native Americans because they weren't Native Americans and they weren't just, I won't use apples and oranges because apples and oranges are both fruit. They simply thought of us natives as the incapable of understanding Anglo-Saxon concepts. Wow. Franklin Mano, where do you buy your Kool-Aid? From Neil Weir? All right. Set aside in our own island like we were just wildlife. How you like me now? This is history in the books. Well, I don't think so. Mano Franklin. Donna Mila, we're the Spanish treatment any different? Are they Anglo-Saxon? The context is the legal system. What existed on Guam via the Spanish was not an Anglo-Saxon legal philosophy. Then Donna Mila again, I think your interpretation is skewed. The same theme. The same time Guam was being colonized, so was the Philippines. Comparatively, we didn't have the same educational status or the same level of political identity. The villages weren't even untitled until one distinct leadership. Let's see. Then Mano Franklin. President McKinley appointed a Navy commander to come here to claim Guam. Well, actually, that's not quite correct. He came here to be in charge of the Navy on Guam and the island. He came after Guam after Spanish lost the war in 1898. That naval commander essentially didn't come to work with our people. We were banned from speaking in school and public places. Not at that time. And, you know, Mano Franklin, I want to call your attention to the fact that up until 1974, there were signs posted in government offices that said English is the official language of Guam. Other languages shall not be used except for official interpreter purposes. This was 24 years after the Organic Act, when the legislature changed the law and made Guam and Chamorro official languages. So don't get too carried away on this. Navy stopped us from using our language. If you understand what really happened, Chamorro survived through the Spanish administration, the naval administration, all the way up to World War II, through the Japanese occupation, and well into the 60s. And then Chamorro came on tough times. You want to know why? Because people didn't want to use it anymore. It wasn't some external force that caused Chamorro to kind of lose its currency. Anyhow, he goes on to say the naval commander essentially didn't come to work with our people. No, he came to be the commanding officer in Guam. And then he goes on to say, I speak Chamorro because I grew up learning our language. Well, now that's a surprise. And I got to go back to Mark Twain. Mark Twain, upon returning from his Paris vacation, said he was surprised to find that even the children spoke French. And I've made this so many times on the show. Utungo fino Chamorro, di appling e Chamorro below maleknya ke tadzanai, uusa kada dia. And I had to, whatever I know, I had to learn. And you learn with your ears, not with your mouth. And I'm still learning. I'm kada dia nai. I'm learning. But I never had to learn English. I got English for nothing. Just like you got Chamorro for nothing, Mano Franklin. If Chamorro is your mother tongue, mother being the key word here, If it's the language that was spoken around you when you were a small child, you didn't have to learn Chamorro. You got it for nothing. He said, I speak Chamorro because I grew up learning our language, which is hacked with Spanish words. Hacked with Spanish words. Yeah, like the way the Chamorro language adopted the word icebox for refrigerator, right? Because there weren't any ice boxes during Spanish time. So, you know, when you adopt a term from a foreign language, or when you adopt an item from a foreign language, you often adopt the word for that item from a foreign language. The other way things get named is the phenomenon of circumlocution. And I'll give you an example. In your living room, Mano Franklin, you probably have a box that has a screen on it, and you have a remote, and you could watch things on that screen, right? Yeah, when I was a kid, we didn't have those. Those didn't come along till I was about 10 years old. Those things are called television. Now, did the old Anglo-Saxons back in merry old England, did they talk in terms of television? No. When this new invention came along, we took a Latin word and a Greek word, smashed them together, and named this new device. Now, the Germans have a different way of going about it. They use something called circumlocution. And in circumlocution, the German word, I don't remember what the word is, but if you were to translate it to English, this is how it would come out. It would be long-distance picture transmission. That's how you'd say it in German.
There is a word I heard, an older word, that means flower on Guam. It's not flor or...
Flores.
Flores, right. That's
Yeah.
the Spanish
Yeah.
pronunciation. But it's similar to the, what did you call it, locution? Where it's the laughter of the plant. And I can't remember exactly how it was pronounced, but that's the way, that's the mindset, that's the context of how the Chamorros described a flower, the laughter of the plant.
Yeah. So the fact that there are a lot of loan words in a language doesn't mean the language has been hacked. English is such a horrible language. And if you know anything about Chamorro is much more regular than English, which ain't saying much. Spanish and Japanese are super regular compared to English. You know, you take English, go, went, gone, good, better, best. This is logical? No, it's not logical at all. So what you have with English is you took this for want of a better term, Anglo-Saxon root, and you smashed all kinds of Latin, French, Celtic, and other vocabulary into it that not only changed the vocabulary, but even changed the structure of the language. And that's why we have these strange things in English. But anyhow, going on with what you're saying here, I speak Chamorro because I grew up learning our language, which is hacked up with Spanish words. So when you say skewed, please elaborate. Permit me, let's agree to disagree. Well, we don't agree to disagree on tall tales. You know, if we disagree about something, you know, we hang with it. And if you want to stick to your guns, you stick to your guns and come back and try it some other time. Tall Tales thrives on argument and disagreement. All right, where was I here? Kyle versus GPA, but let's head for Churchill Downs before we get into that.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tenactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
You know, it's every, I don't remember what time of the year it is, but there are a couple of nights when the air is full of termite flying, the winged part of the termite evolution or metamorphosis. And it seems like we've got environmental wackos, a flock of environmental wackos that flew in here today. Because I've got a letter from a guy named Kyle DeHelig that ran in the Daily News. And to give you a little background on Mr. DeHelig, he is a University of Guam College of Natural and Applied Sciences student majoring in integrative biology, who writes for the Daily News about the rising cost of energy and the need for greater energy leadership. And here's what he says. Guam's powerful leaders have promised us energy savings, but energy prices continue to skyrocket. In 2020, headlines such as GPA proposal would lead to higher rates were crafted by and pushed out through the media outlets that shuttered progress towards diversifying our energy capacity. All the fear-mongering by Guam's energy experts has kept our island from moving towards safe and healthy energy systems, with lies about energy savings to creating catastrophic cave damage in the Sausajan Valley and perpetuating dirty energy structures nearby our students and schools. Let me go back and read his bio again here. Kyle DeHelig is a University of Guam student majoring in integrative biology and demagoguery. That's what it ought to say. Yeah, a little more demagoguery here, Kyle DeHelig.
Took me a little.
Yeah. Now, these energy experts forced us to believe that allowing our schools to enter into purchase of leaseback of renewable energy purchase service would raise our utility rates, with John Beneventi of Guam Power Authority proclaiming in 2020 that Bill 219 would have unintended consequences of increased rates for non-net metered customers, including low-income, disadvantaged, and other households with no opportunity to be net metering customers. In reality, rates have exponentially increased even without our schools entering into these solar energy agreements and with refinanced enactment of Bill 212. These longtime energy leaders have built their castle of lies while the people are left suffering from failed leadership without any forward-moving energy solutions. Because they're lobbying and expert fear-mongering, our community continues to be denied the opportunities to build reliable energy independence away from expensive fuels. Our energy experts have fooled us into believing that we can entrust them as they have continued to partner with their friends who destroy ecosystems with their green environmental initiatives. What happened at Marble Cave was negligence. It's only negligence? Wow. I thought he would have said intentional. And remarkably, without Samsung and Korea Electric Power Company admitting guilt, has paved way for a dangerous, slippery slope for corporations with enough cash to get away with unsustainable development projects, too. Apart from their lies and cultural destruction projects, we continue to be blessed with their expertise as their new fossil fuel plant is slated to be built next to Jose Rios Middle School, and their legacy bonds keep many more generations locked into dirty energy because of their great-great-grandfather's uninspiring revolutionary commitment to fossil fuels. I wish we had energy leaders. Instead, we're left with lackluster energy losers. Now,
I'm sorry. He had me until the ad hominem.
yeah. Well, you know, I'm not Simon Sanchez, but I read enough in the papers and I pay attention and I'm engaged enough to know that 99.9% of what he says is bunk. That the base cost of running the power authority has not increased since 2010. Any increase in power bills is because of the increase in the price of fuel. But let's see, I've got R. Keith. I'll let R. Keith work on him for a minute while I rest a minute. Go ahead, R. Keith.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. This is such a target-rich environment, really, one hardly knows where to begin, other than I personally would be embarrassed to write such an ignorant screed and make it public. It is nothing but there's the generalities, talking points, and he got a lot of buzzwords in there. Of course, disadvantaged communities, you got to get in that, and unsustainable. We were lacking white supremacy and Chamorro's self-determination. I'm a little disappointed he didn't manage to get those in there.
Yeah.
But if this is what is being churned out as science, the University of Guam needs to up the game. It's frustrating, like I said, where to begin, because the baseline lack of understanding of green energy and economics with this. You have to drill down too deep. You have to keep drilling down and go, where is your basic education coming from? Nowhere on earth is going to be 100% green energy. Got news for you. You need to find, if it's not going to be fossil fuels, it's going to be nuclear. Because sun and wind ain't going to do it. But this kid continues to the rainbows and the unicorns. It's just disappointing, frankly, that this is what universities are putting out.
And the Power Authority has a schedule as to, how much solar energy we're bringing online every year, and like by 2035 we're almost going to be there. It's he's saying, you guys are not doing anything. All you're doing is digging coal out of your backyard. He doesn't even have even halfway decent handle on what's going on here.
Yeah, I'm not surprised the printer the paper printed it. I mean, they're this is something that they agree with. It's just disappointing, like I said, that the University of Guam, a science student, so-called science student, this is their level of understanding of the situation. If anyone, who do you trust? 20-year-old in college being indoctrinated by, woke professors, or the gentleman who's the head of the Guam Power Authority, who's an admitted expert in the field and has been working there for many, many, many years? They're not called experts for no reason. I suggest the kid either get a refund on his tuition or start studying harder.
Or at least give me a refund on my paper.
Right.
The Guam College of Natural and Applied Sciences, and he's majoring in integrative biology.
I don't even know what that means. What is integrative biology?
Yeah.
That's I don't know. Is that where they try and rationalize that there are more than two genders?
Probably. Yeah. Yeah.
I've spent 8 years in college myself. I've got to say, I have no idea what an integrated biology is.
And imagine what this kid can do when he gets out of college, and if anyone will actually give him a job. Think of what he's.
Well, there's always the government.
Yeah, maybe he's probably laying the foundation for becoming the next general manager GPA after he gets out of college. To bring the magic of sustainability to the power authority.
Well, take it easy, gentlemen. Just too funny.
Good talking to you, as usual, R. Keith.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's a letter to the editor by Kyle DeHelig. Kyle DeHelig is a study in the College of Mathematics and Science, majoring in higher math. And here's his story. All of this talk about 2 and 2 equaling 4 is misplaced. We need math teachers who really teach what math is all about. Well, rather than just being satisfied with the old tired song that 2 plus 2 equals 4, we need creative thinking in the math. And to think, that some of my tax money goes to the university, to think that my wife spent, a professional lifetime there, and we're turning out junk like this, it's really disappointing. All right, let's see. I got about, 4 minutes to go, Jose? Let me see what folks are saying on Facebook here. John Beneventi being criticized by a student from UOG, complete silliness, like a toddler dumping their cereal. Well, that's Donna Milo.
Maybe she can tell us what integrated biology is. Is that like existentialism? They just decide what they want as reality?
Yeah. Jose Ted Bahago, take issue when it said our solar panels have zero emissions. False. It gives off heat radiation and displaces animals from an environment. And if you do a little research what it takes to make a solar panel, the mining, the rare earth, etc.
And how to dispose of a solar panel.
Yeah, after their 20-year life cycle ends, right? And let's see, Ellen Leon Guerrero, I think he was writing for college credit. I remember writing a paper in college and threw a bunch of words together just so I could get a grade. This is Ellen Leon Guerrero, not Vice President Kamala Harris, but the principle is the same. Jose Martinez said the media is so eager to publish ignorance, and that's a fact. Let's see. Lonnie Salas, esta gupa tailgaters bina buka e puppies. You got to go feed her dogs. That's okay. Tazagwaha, Lanny. And let's see. Colin Clark. My first language was Chamorro. Learned it on the ranch style way of life. I had to learn English at St. Francis. Yeah. Good for you, Colin.
Not Latin?
Yeah. There's a short course on Latin. Let's see. I hear the magic music in the background. It's time for me to call it a day. Wish you a good night. See you tomorrow. And let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Another jump in the price of gas. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The AAA just reporting the average price for a gallon of regular unleaded has topped $4.67. That's up nearly a nickel from yesterday and close to 50 cents a gallon higher than 1 month ago. President Biden expressing confidence in the Fed's efforts to slow inflation after meeting yesterday with Chairman Jerome Powell, but not everyone in the party agrees.
Some Democrats doubt the Federal Reserve's recent track record on inflation. At White House, top economic officials are very defensive about months' worth of possible policy missteps as prices continue to rise.
Fox's Peter Ducey. The Justice Department now appealing a ruling from a Florida judge last month that ended mask requirements on airplanes and other forms of public transportation. The DOJ says the mask order falls within the legal authority of the Centers for Disease Control. The Florida federal judge ruled the mask mandate was an overreach. Investigators at the U.S. Supreme Court probing the leak of that Supreme Court draft opinion nearly a month ago, now focusing on law clerks as possible suspects.
Even taking steps to require law clerks to provide cell phone records and sign affidavits. Some clerks are considering legal counsel in the process.
Fox's Kevin Corke in Washington. The leaked draft opinion in a Mississippi abortion case called for overturning Roe versus Wade. A court hearing today could make a would-be presidential assassin a free man.
A federal judge is set to preside over an important hearing for John Hinckley, who's on the verge of being released from all remaining restrictive conditions. The judge saying last fall that he'd free Hinckley totally on June 15th as long as he continued to do well. Officials say he has. Hinckley was confined to a mental hospital for 2 decades after a jury found him not guilty by reason of insanity for shooting Reagan. He's been living full-time in Virginia since 2016, though still under restrictions.
Fox's Chris DeMaio. America is listening to Fox News.
Get all of your favorite Fox News